The gas pump bled the first time I blinked. That's when I realised I wasn't working at a gas station. I was working for something else. My name's Eli Mercer. I was broke, bitter, and one more missed rent check away from sleeping in my car again. After losing everything in Reno, I headed north, hoping Alaska might offer anything that didn't feel like failure. What I got was a job. At a gas station, in the middle of nowhere, Midnight Express gas. Copper Center, Alaska. Population maybe 300 on a good day. I found the ad stapled to a bulletin board inside a diner, where the coffee tasted like rust, and the locals refused to make eye contact. No company logo, no fancy design, just plain black ink on yellowed paper. Night shift attendant needed, 18 at HR. Must follow all posted rules. Rules. 7 of them. Handwritten in block letters and posted behind the counter in a cracked plastic frame. I should have walked away the moment I read rule number 2. If someone calls your name from outside between 2 syllables and 3 syllables, do not answer. It is not a person. I thought it was a joke. A weird prank. I was wrong. This isn't a story. This is a record, because if you ever see that job posting Midnight Express gas, night shifts, follow all rules, and you're desperate enough to call the number, you'd better read the rules twice. And whatever you do, don't break rule number 4. I didn't take the night shift to find answers. I took it because I had nothing left to lose. That's what desperation does. It makes you think $18 an hour and a warm place to sit is worth ignoring your guts when the rules posted on the wall say things like, don't answer the phone after 3:17 a.m. or ignore the child if it enters alone. My name is Eli Mercer. I'm 29. And when I pulled into Copper Center, Alaska, my life was already over. I just hadn't realized it yet. The Subaru I was driving wasn't mine. It belonged to a cousin who stopped returning my calls 6 months ago. My last $800 was stuffed in a crumpled envelope in the glove box, right next to the pawn ticket for an engagement ring I should have never bet on blackjack. I'd driven 18 hours from Fairbanks on fumes, caffeine, and the dumb hope that maybe distance could bury regret. The town wasn't even a dot on most maps, just a diner, a few cabins, and 2 gas stations facing off across a cracked road like gunslingers. One was a Chevron, full of lights, trucks, and real people. The other, Midnight Express, a place that looked like it belonged to another time, or another world. That's where I saw it, the flyer. No company logo, no name. Just blocky black letters, night shift needed, Midnight Express gas, 18 hour. Must follow all posted rules. It didn't say apply in person. It didn't say experience required. It just left a number and a challenge. And something about it felt wrong in a way I couldn't explain. But wrong still felt better than broke. So I dialed. 3 rings. Then a voice like gravel. You available to start tonight? No interview. No questions. Just a voice that sounded like it had seen things that couldn't be unseen. And that's how it started, the worst night of my life. Working the haunted gas station everyone on the highway warns you not to stop at. When I showed up that night, the wind in Copper Center felt like it could flay skin. Midnight Express looked worse up close, one flickering sign. A front window stained with something that might have been ash or blood, and the faint smell of melted plastic hanging in the air. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt watched. The front door creaked open before I touched it, and the bell above didn't ring. It rattled like something nervous. Then I saw him, the night manager. Grey coat, grey eyes, hands like old tree bark. He looked at me like he already knew I'd say yes. "You Eli?" he asked. I nodded. "Good." You start now. That was my interview. He handed me a single sheet of yellow paper, 7 rules, handwritten in all caps, like warnings carved into a cave wall. 1. Keep the exterior lights on at all times. 2. If someone calls your name from outside between 2-3 A, do not respond. 3. If a child enters alone, do not acknowledge it. 4. Do not answer the phone between 3:17 and 3. So say 3A. 5. If anyone asks about the mining camp, say it burned down in 1987. Do not say more. 6. If a vehicle arrives with no driver, lock yourself in the office and stay silent. 7. Only call me if it's absolutely necessary. Don't trust any other voice, not even your own. I laughed nervously. Is this a joke? He didn't blink, just stared. Then said, the last guy broke Rule 4. We still get calls from him. That sentence killed the laughter in my throat. The man, Mr. Gray, as I learned later, walked me through the station like a soldier passing a cursed weapon to the next poor bastard. Everything works fine, he said, until the clock hits 2 Aldera A. Then the place remembers it's hungry. And with that, he left me alone. Me. A broke man with no options, trapped in a haunted gas station, with nothing but 7 impossible rules between me and whatever wanted in. The first hour of my shift was quiet, too quiet, like the kind of silence that knows something you don't. The wall clock ticked slowly, deliberately, as if mocking me. I did a walkthrough, checked the card reader, the freezer, the bathroom. Everything worked. No flickering lights, no demonic whispers. But the wrongness wasn't in what I could see. It was in the air. Thick, heavy, cold in a way that felt intentional, like someone had just left the room, and I'd missed them by seconds. I flipped on the exterior floodlights like rule number 1 said. The parking lot outside lit up in a sickly yellow hue, casting shadows that stretched too long, too far, like they were clinging to the light just to survive. Still no customers, no movement, no wind, just me and the quiet hiss of old fluorescent bulbs that buzzed with the rhythm of a dying heartbeat. I went to the cooler to grab a soda. That's when I saw it. A small handprint pressed against the glass, right where the frost had begun to form. Tiny. Delicate, and definitely not mine. It hadn't been there earlier. Back at the front counter, I checked the security feed. Every camera flicked through empty pump bay, locked front door, nobody inside, until one frame froze me. Outside, just a few feet from the door, stood a figure dark, still dusted in snow, no face, no motion. Just staring directly at the lens. I whipped around toward the glass. No one. Nothing. That's when I realized this place wasn't haunted. It was a trap. And I hadn't been hired. I'd been baited. Something was out there, watching, waiting, not to kill me, but to see if I'd break a rule first. This wasn't a job. This was a test. And I had just stepped onto the stage without knowing the script. I told myself I imagined the figure. I even said it out loud, like speaking would make it true. But the air felt different now. Not just colder, heavier, like it had been watching me lie. I returned to the counter, sipped the warm soda, and opened the logbook. Mr. Gray had left behind. It looked older than the register, filled with jagged handwriting, stains, and pages that crackled like dead leaves. The first few entries were basic inventory notes, pump readings. But then I found one underlined in red, "Do not speak to the girl in the pink parka," She is not lost. She is not cold. She is not real. My stomach dropped, because that's exactly what I saw next. Little footprints, soaked and shimmering, leading from the front door to aisle 2. I hadn't heard the bell. I hadn't seen the doors open. But someone or something was inside. Rule number 3. If a child enters alone, do not acknowledge it. I froze. I didn't call out, didn't move. I just stared through the glass of the cooler like it could protect me. From the corner of my eye, I saw a shape stop at the end of the aisle. Tiny, pink, still, not moving, not breathing. I didn't look at her, not fully. But I felt her staring at me, like a wolf waiting for a blink. That's when the lights flickered. Not the overheads, the pump lights outside. One by one, they dimmed and buzzed back to life in a rhythm that felt wrong. Mechanical, timed, like something had crossed through them. I checked the cameras again, frame by frame. Nothing. Nothing. And then a smear across the lens. Red, wet, fresh. But when I looked outside, the snow was clean. No footsteps, no blood, no child. I was following the rules. And still, the rules were following me back. This place didn't just test obedience, it punished hesitation. And the girl, she wasn't gone. She was waiting. For me to fail. For someone to slip up. And I knew then, at Midnight Express, breaking the rules isn't the only way to die. Sometimes, surviving them is worse. The girl didn't leave. I didn't see her again. But I knew she hadn't gone. Midnight Express had a way of making you feel like you were alone, right until it decided you weren't. Every minute after that felt longer, like time had started stretching itself, chewing on the seconds just to watch me squirm. I kept checking the logbook, flipping back through years of scrawled panic and warnings scratched into margins. One entry stood out, 317A. Mem, is not just a time, it's an opening. If the phone rings, do not listen. If it speaks in your voice, hang up. You're already inside. I looked at the wall clock. 9A. 8 minutes. I could feel it coming. Then the lights outside glitched again. But this time, the cameras followed. One screen blinked, then bled into static. Another began replaying footage from earlier in the night, except I wasn't in it. Just the store. Empty. But the cooler door opened on its own. Slowly. Smoothly. Like someone or something had decided to replay my timeline without me. I felt my own breath quicken. Heart slamming behind my ribs like it wanted out. Something was wrong with the rules. I was following them. And still, the walls were bending inward. Then the register printed something. By itself. No sale, no button pushed. Just a shriek of thermal paper and a single line. You're doing well, Eli. I backed away. That was my name. I hadn't told it to anyone. Not even Mr. Gray. I opened the drawer beneath the counter and found a Polaroid photo taped to the bottom, burned at the edges. Colour faded. It showed a man standing in this very station, smiling, wearing my jacket. Midnight Express doesn't wait for you to break the rules. It finds the pieces of you that already did. And once it knows your name, it never lets go. By 316A, meme, I wasn't just tired, I was unraveling. My eyes stung, my breath fogged in the air even though the heater was running, and every sound felt too loud. The kind of silence that wraps around your throat like a hand and waits for you to speak first. I checked the wall clock. 3:17, and right on cue. The phone rang. One shrill tone that shattered the quiet. I stared at it. Rule number 4. Do not answer the phone between 3:17 and 3:23 A. My fingers twitched. My mind screamed to ignore it. But the longer I looked at that phone, the more I could swear. It was breathing, pulsing, alive. The ringing didn't stop. It changed, shifted pitch, became slower, deepy, and then I heard it. My voice, on the other end, whispering my name like it had teeth. Eli, don't hang up. I backed away. The cord twitched. The phone moved. Just slightly. Just enough. The cameras all went black. Every screen. Gone. Just a message blinking on the main monitor. Come see. The front door slid open on its own. No bell. No breeze. Just darkness and the faint sound of something wet dragging across concrete. I didn't go to the door. I didn't move. But something stepped inside. I didn't see it. I felt it. Like a memory you never had, crawling under your skin. Then came the knock, not on the glass, on the office door behind me. The one that should have been locked. I turned slowly and heard a voice, my father's voice. But my dad died in 2019. Eli, I'm proud of you. Open up, son. That's when I understood. It wasn't trying to kill me. It was trying to replace me. One rule at a time. One mistake at a time. One voice at a time. Midnight Express doesn't just punish those who break the rules. It studies them. It learns them. And then it makes you question which version of you is still real. The knock didn't stop. 3 slow taps. Measured. Too human to ignore. Too wrong to trust. I stood frozen, pulse in my throat, my back against the counter, the rules looping in my mind like a failing recording. Only call Mr. Gray if absolutely necessary. Don't trust any other voice. Not even your own. The doorknob rattled gently. Then it stopped. Silence. For a second, I thought maybe it was over. Maybe it had given up. That's when the door opened, smooth, casual, like someone who had the key. And there he stood. Carl. Or something wearing his shape. Same grey coat, same blank eyes. But something about him wasn't quite right. His smile was just a little too wide. His movements too smooth, like someone had memorized how people walk but never practiced. Hey there, he said. Shift's over. You did good. Eli, I'll take it from here. My stomach dropped. That wasn't what he said earlier. He told me he'd be back at 6 sharp, and it was barely 3:30. I didn't call you, I said. My voice cracked like thin ice. Yeah. Well, he replied, blinking once, slow and glitchy, like it didn't sync. Things changed. My fingers found the edge of the rule sheet, crumpled now under my grip. My eyes locked on rule number 7. Only call Carl if it's absolutely necessary. Don't trust any other voice, not even your own. Nothing about Carl showing up early. Nothing about him knowing my name without being told. I stepped back. He stepped forward. I reached for the emergency drawer and grabbed the flare gun. Mr. Gray left behind without explanation. You're not him, I said, and he grinned wider. You're not you either, Eli. Not anymore. That broke me. This place wasn't haunted. It was rehearsed. Every scare, every voice, every face it had happened before. Over and over. And the ones who didn't break the rules. The station sent something else in their place. Midnight Express doesn't wait for you to fail. It just needs a mask that fits. And tonight, it was tailoring mine. I don't remember sitting down, but at some point I found myself on the floor behind the counter, knees pulled to my chest, hands trembling around the flare gun like it was a crucifix. Everything was wrong, too quiet, too still, like time had been paused just for me to fall apart. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, slow and pulsing, like breathing. I glanced at the clock. 3:46 A. But the second hand was moving backwards. I checked my phone. 2:01 A.M. Then it died. just went black. The rules weren't protecting me anymore. They were warping around me. Like the station had decided I'd passed the point of testing. Now it wanted something else. That's when I heard it. A heavy dragging sound, like boots across gravel wet, deliberate and angry. It came from outside. I crawled to the monitor bank, half of which was static, the rest stuck in looping footage of me from earlier, only this time. I wasn't blinking. I wasn't breathing. Just staring straight at the screen like I knew I was watching. That version of me smiled, and the cameras died. All of them. The dragging got louder and closer. A new sound joined it, crackling, like fire moving through bone. I peeked through the glass door and saw a shape coming into view. Tall, slouched, smouldering. Every step it took left black footprints that steamed against the frost. Its head tilted sideways, and the smell hit me burned meat and old oil. Rule number 5. If anyone asks about the mining camp, say it burned down in 1987. Say nothing else. It hadn't even reached the door, and I already knew what it would ask. That thing wasn't a ghost. It was a memory that never stopped burning. A wound that the town buried deep and Midnight Express kept feeding. The burned man wasn't looking for help. He was looking for answers. And if I gave him the wrong one, he'd turn me into kindling. Some jobs test your character. This one tests your humanity. And by that hour, I didn't know how much of mine was left. The door never opened. Not physically. The thing that stepped in didn't need permission. It brought its own doorway. 1 second it was outside. The next it was inside the light. Inside the room. As if the station had folded reality just to let it pass through. The heat hit first a wave of scorched air that smelled like charred hair and copper, thick enough to taste. The lights flickered, but never died. Midnight Express wanted me to see this. It wanted me present. He stood near pump 3, face half burned, half forgotten, body wrapped in soot-stained overalls melted into flesh. He didn't move like a man. He moved like memory, like grief given bones. When he spoke, his mouth didn't open, but the words found me anyway. Tell me what happened to the camp. It wasn't a question. It was a command. Rule number 5. If anyone asks about the mining camp, say it burned down in 1987. Say nothing else. I swallowed, throat dry as sand. It burned down. In 1987, he tilted his head. The air grew heavier. Every second of silence stretched like wire over bone. Then he said, "We remember fire, but not death. The tunnel still breathes." The hunger never stopped. I didn't understand until he turned and pointed to the hills beyond the pumps. For the first time all night, I noticed it. The tree line didn't reach that far, and there was smoke, black, silent, rising from nothing. The camp didn't burn, not the way they said. It was buried, covered. But something kept burning anyway. He stepped closer to the glass, but didn't enter. You lied, like the others. But you're not from here. You don't owe them. That makes you useful. Useful. That's when it hit me. Midnight Express wasn't a haunted station. It was a sentry post, a feeding gate. And the rules weren't just survival guides. They were rituals, instructions, traps. Not to protect you from what's out there, but to keep it entertained. The burned man vanished the same way he came, not by leaving, but by fading, like smoke inhaled by something bigger. 1 second he was there, smouldering at the edge of my sanity. The next, just gone. And in his place, the silence returned, not peaceful, but expectant. Like the walls were holding their breath to see what I'd do next. I stumbled back behind the counter, my knees barely holding. I needed answers. I needed something real. So I went back to the logbook. Not the pages on top, but the pages underneath. The ones time had tried to erase. The binding was cracked and yellow. The ink faded, but I found them. Dozens of entries, hundreds, some as far back as 1974, all written by people like me, names scratched out, shaky handwriting, panicked scribbles. One entry from 1991 read, "Second night. The girl spoke to me. Her voice was my sister's. She's been dead since '83. Another, don't stare at the security monitors too long." They show what's about to happen, not what's happening. But the worst one was dated 1988, scrawled in all caps, punctured into the page like the pen was screaming, "The mining camp never burned, they sealed it, and now it eats." I slammed the book shut, bile rising in my throat. The station wasn't just cursed, it was built on something alive. Something the town tried to forget by trapping it under asphalt and fluorescent light. But every night, every shift it reached up, and we were the offering. That's when I understood something deeper. The rules don't protect you from the monsters. They train you to behave in their presence. Every bullet point, every command. Every night shift worker like me, they weren't survivors. They were participants. Performers in a ritual dressed up as customer service. And when someone fails the script, that's when the real show begins. I don't remember closing my eyes, but when I opened them, the world was darker than it should have been. Not black, just muted, like the colour had been drained from everything. The clock said 4:57 a.m., but it ticked without sound. The monitors flickered again, then stabilised, and every camera showed the same thing. Not the gas pumps, not the aisles. Me, standing motionless in the centre of the store. Me, staring at the lens. Me, smiling. But I wasn't smiling, and I wasn't standing. Something else was, wearing my skin like a uniform. I blinked, and the footage shifted. The figure tilted its head. Then each monitor glitched and every version of me moved independently. One waved, one grinned wider, one slammed its fist against the glass. Midnight Express wasn't haunted. It was splitting me. Every rule I followed carved off a version of myself. Every hesitation, every fear, the station had been making copies, studying my identity like a language. And now, with the night almost over, it was time to choose which version of me it would keep. The lights went out. Not flickered, not dimmed. Just gone. Total darkness. And in that void, I heard the voice again. My voice. You made it. Eli. We made it. Only one of us gets to leave. I ran. Through the aisles. Past the empty shelves and humming walls, toward the back office. I didn't look at the windows. I didn't check the mirrors, because I already knew the version of me on the other side would smile back, and if I hesitated, it would step through. Inside the office, I locked the door, lit the flare gun, and watched the second hand crawl past 5:59. Something pounded against the door, not to break it down, but to remind me it knew I was real. And that made me vulnerable. The rules were never about protection. They were a cage. And when dawn hit, I wouldn't escape. I'd just be released with something still watching from behind my eyes. When the first light of dawn broke over the tree line, I didn't feel relief. I felt watched. Like the shadows weren't retreating from the sun, but slipping under the floorboards to wait for night to fall again. I was still locked in the office, flare gun in hand, staring at the clock as it struck 6 a.m. No sound, no voice, just the air shifting, like the whole station exhaled after a long night of pretending to be alive. The pounding on the door stopped. The temperature rose by a single degree. And I knew it was over. Or at least, this part was. I opened the door slowly. Every light in the store flicked back on as if they hadn't blinked once all night. The pumps outside glowed like nothing had happened. The cameras reset. The smell of fire and ash vanished. Even the cooler, where I'd first seen the child's handprint, was spotless. It felt wrong to see the place looking so normal, like waking up next to a body and realizing it's smiling. I walked outside. No snow disturbed, no black footprints. But at pump 3, where the ashwalker had stood, I found something stuck to the concrete. A melted keycard. Warped, branded with a single word burned into the plastic return. My chest tightened. I didn't know if it was an instruction or a warning. All I knew was that I wasn't staying to find out. Carl, if the man I met ever existed, was nowhere to be found. I left the keys, the flare gun, and the logbook exactly where I found them, got in the Subaru, drove until the gaslight came on. I didn't speak. I didn't blink too long. And I didn't stop until I reached Seattle. I checked into a motel under a fake name, burned my jacket, switched phones. I didn't want to be found. Not by it. Not by me. For months, I didn't tell a soul. I told myself it was just trauma. Just sleep deprivation. Just a vivid hallucination from a desperate man on the edge. But then, last week, it happened. I passed a gas station on the outskirts of Spokane. A different name, a different building. But I saw it, the flyer, stapled to a wooden pole. Same font, same words. Night shift needed, 18 HR. Must follow all posted rules. And then, 2 nights later, my phone rang at 3:17 a.m. I didn't answer, but I listened, and on the other end, I heard myself breathing. You don't leave Midnight Express. You survive it, and if it decides you pass the test, it follows you home. Because the rules don't end when the sun comes up. They just wait for night to fall again. People think surviving the night means you're safe. That once you make it past the last rule, once the sun hits the windows and burns away the dark, you get to leave with your sanity intact. But that's not how this works. Midnight Express doesn't end at 6 Azure. It just lets go long enough to make you think you're free. I spent the first week in Seattle afraid to close my eyes. I left every light on, covered every mirror. I unplugged the landline in the motel room and snapped my burner phone in half on the 3rd night because at exactly 3:17 a.m. it started ringing, no caller ID, just silence. And breathing. My breathing. I told myself it was a prank, a leftover hallucination. I tried convincing myself that I'd imagined the rules, the burned man, the girl in the pink parka, even the thing wearing my face. But denial doesn't last long when your reflection moves just a little too late, or when the man 2 tables down at the diner mouths the words you passed without ever looking up from his eggs. I started dreaming in surveillance footage, not memories angles, perspectives I've never had, dreams from inside the gas station. Except I wasn't me anymore. I was the counter. I was the register. I was the glass. Watching, recording, waiting. Some mornings, I'd wake up standing. Other times, I'd wake up to Polaroid slipped under the door photos of me asleep, taken from inches away. One of them had writing on the back. Not ink. Scratched in with something sharp. It read, "You left a part of yourself behind. Come get it." I tried to move again. Different motel. Different town. But the moment I stopped driving, the same rules found me. A whisper outside the window at 2:41 a little girl's laughter echoing from the bathroom drain. Another flyer taped to the gas pump where I stopped for fuel. The paper looked soaked, but it never got wet. I realised something then. Midnight Express wasn't a place. It was a ritual, a system, and I hadn't escaped it. I'd been initiated. The shift never really ends for people like me. We just carry it with us. Every gas station I pass now, every flickering bulb, every time the clock hits 3:17, I feel it watching. Not angry, not malicious, just expectant. Like I'm still on duty. Like it's still waiting for me to break a rule. Maybe it's not about surviving the rules at all. Maybe the real test is what you do after. Because once Midnight Express knows your name, it never forgets your face. And eventually, it always finds a reason to call you back in. I used to think horror was something you escaped. That if you made it to the final page, the last frame, the sunrise, you'd walk away. Maybe a little shaken. Maybe a little broken. But still you. But that's the biggest lie Midnight Express ever sold me. You don't walk away from a place like that. You're rebuilt by it. Rewritten. Every rule you followed. Every moment you hesitated. It rewires you. And what's left, it looks like you. But it isn't. Not completely. I haven't said my real name in weeks. I avoid mirrors now. Not because I'm afraid of what I'll see, but because sometimes I see myself before I move. A flicker, a delay, a breath that comes from the wrong side of the glass. I don't work anymore, not officially, but it doesn't matter. Every time I pass a help wanted sign, I catch my hand twitching toward it, like the part of me that belonged to the station still wants to go back, still thinks it has a job to finish. I think that's the worst part, knowing that you're still on the clock, even when the store is thousands of miles away. Some nights, I wake up to find my shoes by the door, muddy, wet, like I've been somewhere, and on the desk a receipt, one I didn't sign, one that reads pump 3, 0.0, time 2, 59 at A. The other night, I found a new rule taped to my wall, just one, in the same crooked handwriting I swore I'd never see again. Rule 8, when they send someone to replace you, don't let them in. I don't know what that means. Not yet, but I've started keeping the lights on again. I unplug the phone before midnight. I don't answer knocks. Because maybe I'm not the only one who made it out. Maybe someone else broke a rule worse than I did, and now it's looking to trade. So this is it. This story, this warning, it's not a confession, it's a user manual. If you see the flyer, if you feel the pull, if the job seems too simple for what it pays, burn the ad. Smash the phone. Don't ask questions. Just walk away. Because once you take that first shift, it doesn't end with sunrise. It ends when there's nothing left of you to clock out. And I don't know how much of me is left anymore. But I know this Midnight Express is still out there. Still hiring. Still watching. And the rules, they're just the beginning. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this evil doesn't always come with claws or teeth. Sometimes it hands you a name tag, a rule sheet, and a key to the front door. It tells you you're doing a good job. It praises you for surviving. It teaches you to obey, to watch the clock, to play by rules written in someone else's blood. And the worst part is, by the time you realize what you've become, it's already too late to undo it. I used to be a person. Now I'm a pattern, a routine. I wake up at 3:15 a.m, no matter what city I'm in. I check the door, I check the lights, I listen. Not because I'm paranoid, but because something inside me needs to make sure the shift didn't start again without me. Some scars don't bleed, they tick. And mine's counting down to something I still don't understand. I know people will hear this and think it's fiction. Creepypasta. A late night fever dream wrapped in spooky edits and clickbait thumbnails. That's fine, because if you believe this is just a story, then maybe you'll never follow the wrong ad, never take the wrong job, never hear your voice whispering from the other end of a deadline at 3:17 a.m. Maybe you'll get to keep your name, your face, your soul. But if this hits you the way that flyer hit me, if you feel the pull when you shouldn't run, run like it's already behind you, because it probably is. These aren't just rules, they're contracts. And every person who follows them carves a little bit of space inside themselves where something else can move in. I don't know who I was before Midnight Express. I remember pieces, moments, faces, a life I must have thought mattered. But that person he clocked out years ago, I'm just what's left wearing his name. So if you're reading this, or hearing this, or feeling this echo under your skin, I need you to understand surviving doesn't make you a hero. It makes you a witness. And witnesses don't walk away untouched. We carry the blueprints of the thing that tried to erase us. We breathe with lungs that remember the smoke. We walk with footsteps that echo from a place we never left. And deep down, no matter how far we run, some part of us still hears the bell over the gas station door, still waits for the next customer, still follows the rules. This isn't just a story. It's a scar that learned how to speak. And if you're still here, still listening, still watching, then maybe it means something inside you recognizes what I'm saying. Maybe you've seen a place that doesn't belong on a map. Maybe you've passed a gas station late at night and felt the air get too still, the lights too yellow, the silence too interested. You didn't stop. Good. Because if you had, maybe I'd be the one whispering through your phone next. I've spent every day since that night trying to feel real again. I've walked in crowds, sat in sunlight, eaten food I could barely taste all to remind myself I'm human. But it's never quite enough. Not since Midnight Express. Because once you survive something that was never supposed to let you leave, reality doesn't fit right anymore. People smile and blink and breathe like they're following a script, and all I see are patterns. All I hear is the static before the next tape starts rolling. I didn't escape. I was released, like a marked animal sent back into the wild. And now I see the signs everywhere, reflections that don't sync up, cameras that catch moments no one remembers, doors that don't creak unless you're alone. And sometimes, I hear someone say my name in a voice that's almost mine. Almost. I tell myself I'm just paranoid, that the rules are in the past. But deep down, I know the truth. The station didn't want to kill me. It wanted to change me, mold me into something useful. A courier, a gatekeeper, a carrier of the ritual. Because now, I know how the system works. I know the language of the place. And maybe that's the worst part. I can feel it sometimes, this pull to write the rules down again, to hand them off, to pass the curse along. I haven't done it. Not yet. But the temptation grows stronger. Not because I'm evil, but because I understand now. The station doesn't need monsters. It builds them. One rule at a time. One survivor at a time. And maybe that's what I've become. A walking page in the manual. A reminder that you can follow every step perfectly and still walk away infected. Different. So here's the only truth I have left if you ever see the flyer. No matter where you are, no matter what you've lost, don't take the job. Don't rationalize it. Don't try to outsmart it. Just walk away. burn the paper, change your name if you have to, because once you're inside, once those fluorescent lights hum to life and that old register dings open, it's already too late. And the only version of you that ever walks back out won't be the one that walked in. This will be the last thing I ever say about Midnight Express. Not because I'm afraid, though I am, but because the more I speak it aloud, the more real it becomes again. Like every word is a key turning in the lock of something I barely escaped. Something that still remembers me. I'm not here to be believed. I'm not trying to go viral or cash in on trauma. I'm here because someone else is going to take that job. Someone desperate, broke, running from something just like I was. Someone who's going to see the flyer, read the rules, and think it's just weird enough to be a joke. It's not a joke. It's bait, and the rules. They're not safeguards. They're rituals. Every do nots, every line in red ink is a thread in something older than logic. Something hungry, something patient. You don't follow the rules to survive. You follow them to participate. And that's how it gets in. Not through fear. Not through violence. Through repetition. Through compliance. Through the part of you that just wants to keep the lights on until morning. I broke a rule. I survived. And that doesn't make me lucky, it makes me responsible. Because now I know how this ends. I know what happens when the station gets bored, when it's not enough to watch, when it wants to become... I can feel it inside me sometimes. Not a voice, a rhythm, like I'm still back there punching in, checking the pumps, reciting the script in my head while something behind the cooler breathes in sync with my fear. I've seen things I can't explain. Shadows that stretch the wrong way. Faces that flicker when lights pass. People in diners who don't blink. And I've started to notice there are others like me. Survivors who don't make eye contact. Who flinch when the clock strikes 3:17. Who know better than to pick up unknown numbers late at night. We're not a group. We don't meet, but we recognize each other. And we all carry the same silent question. How long until it calls us back? If you're hearing this, I need you to promise me something. If you ever find yourself standing at a gas station that feels off, trust that instinct. Don't go inside. Don't look for the manager. Don't ask about the flyer. Just leave. Drive. Run. Burn the map if you have to. Because there's still time for you. There's still a chance that you don't belong to it. I'm not sure if I can say the same for myself. Because every night, as the clock ticks past midnight, I start to feel the shift. I start to remember the rules without trying. And sometimes, I hope the phone rings. Sometimes, I catch myself checking the pumps in my sleep. Sometimes, I smile when I shouldn't. So please, don't let my story become your training manual. Don't let your shift begin. Because once it does, Midnight Express always gets what it wants. And sometimes, what it wants is you. Here's the truth they don't tell you about surviving the unexplainable. It doesn't make you stronger. It makes you hollow. You don't walk away with purpose. You crawl away filled with static, with questions that rot behind your ribs. People love stories like mine because they think they end with a lesson. But what do you learn from a job that turns your soul into a service counter? I've replayed that night at Midnight Express 1,000 times. Every second, every rule, every breath that felt borrowed. And what I've come to understand is this: the most dangerous thing in the world isn't a demon, a ghost, or a monster in the woods. It's a system that teaches you to obey without asking why. Because once you surrender your judgment, you surrender yourself. And I did that. Rule by rule, step by step. Until I wasn't Eli anymore, I was procedure. The station didn't force me to stay. It convinced me to comply. With a paycheck, a warm light, a script, with the illusion of control. And I clung to that illusion because it was easier than admitting I'd become a participant in something ancient and evil. Something that survives by handing people a checklist and telling them it's for their own good. And when it was over, when I was free, I didn't celebrate. I just waited for the next set of rules, for the next invisible cage to close around me. So if you want to take away a real one here, it is: ask what you're agreeing to. Question the script. Burn the handbook. Because once you start living by someone else's rules, it's only a matter of time before they own the rest of you too. Midnight Express didn't teach me how to survive. It taught me how easily we sell off pieces of ourselves in exchange for a sense of order. And when it's done with you, when it's chewed through your fear and your identity and your resistance, it doesn't kill you. No, it lets you go. Because nothing spreads faster than someone who thinks they're just doing their job. You want to survive something like that. Don't follow the rules. Follow your gut. Follow the wrong hallway. Say no when you're told not to. Turn around. Leave the gas station. Rip the flyer down. Refuse the shift. Because anything that demands blind obedience under the guise of structure doesn't want you safe. It wants you trained. I came out the other side with a name and a pulse, but I lost the blueprint of who I was. Now I live on instinct, on flashes of memory, on the echo of my own voice reciting rules that should have never existed. And I wonder if there's a version of me, still trapped behind the glass, still following protocol, still waiting for 600 a.m. Don't be that version. Don't become a name on the logbook. Because once you punch in at Midnight Express, you don't work the job. The job works through you. If you think horror ends when the monsters vanish, you've never lived with what follows. The real terror doesn't come from what Midnight Express showed me. It comes from what it took. Not my life, not my body, my certainty, my instinct, my ability to trust my own damn mind. Because once you survive a place like that, reality stops being a fixed thing. It starts bending, warping, whispering. You see shadows and wonder if they're memories. You hear your name and wonder if you're the one calling. That's the thing they never tell you about rules-based horror. You don't survive it by winning. You survive it by obeying. And what's left of you afterward isn't whole, it's compliant. I used to laugh at warning signs. I used to think structure was control. Now I flinch when I hear chimes. I check behind every door, even if I locked it myself. And I haven't looked in a mirror after 3 seconds since the night I saw myself blink before I did. I've become something I never wanted: a messenger. A living footnote to a set of cursed instructions. Not because I wanted to share my story, but because I had to. Because if I didn't, I'd be complicit. Someone out there is going to take that job. Someone's going to find that flyer, ignore their instincts, and sign up thinking they're just desperate. I was that someone. And that's what Midnight Express feeds on: not evil, not stupidity, desperation. The kind of desperation that makes you think $18 an hour is worth anything. Worth silence. Worth fear. Worth trading your name for a number and your mind for a script. And it doesn't even ask for much. Just follow the rules. Just stay inside the lines. Just let yourself be shaped. But here's the truth. And you need to hear it before it's too late. Some jobs aren't meant to be worked. Some buildings shouldn't have power. And some instructions are written not to protect you, but to train the next sacrifice. Midnight Express didn't want employees. It wanted participants, sympathizers, hosts. Every rule it gave me wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. If you're listening, and this story feels familiar, stop right now, delete the number, burn the paper. Don't respond to the voice that sounds like someone you love. Because if you answer, if you open the door, if you walk inside that store, you might survive the night. But you won't survive yourself. Because you'll come out like I did, wired for silence, haunted by patterns, and waiting for a shift you didn't ask for. And the next time something knocks at 3:17 a.m., you won't run. You'll open the door, recite the rules, and welcome it in like an old friend. And that's how it spreads. Not through violence, through familiarity. You don't just survive Midnight Express. You carry it. And someday, when your own voice starts to glitch, when you start dreaming in camera angles, you'll understand the final rule. You were never off the clock. I used to believe evil wore a face something grotesque, monstrous, something you could run from. But now I know the truth. Evil wears a name tag. It clocks in on time. It smiles through fluorescent light. It hands you a rule sheet and tells you it's for your safety, when really it's a script for your transformation. I didn't walk out of Midnight Express a hero. I walked out a shell stitched back together by things I'll never understand. Every time I tell this story, a little more of me feels less like memory and more like playback. Like I'm not remembering anymore. I'm repeating. That's what Midnight Express does. It doesn't just feed on fear. It feeds on repetition, obedience, legacy. You think this is over because I left the station. It's not. It's portable. It lives in routines, in people who forget to ask why. That's why I had to speak, not to cleanse myself, not to heal, but to warn, because someone else is next. I don't know where the flyer will show up next. It might not even be a gas station. It could be a diner, a warehouse, a motel on the edge of nowhere. The format changes, but the rules always stay the same. You follow them, you survive, you break them, you learn, and either way, you're never the same. Midnight Express doesn't kill you. It drafts you, puts you on payroll, turns you into a carrier of fear wrapped in routine. And the worst part, you function, you go back to life, you blend in, you nod when people talk, you say you're fine, but at night when the lights hum and the clock hits just past 3, you feel it stirring. That old rhythm, the familiar static, the pull to return, even if only in your thoughts, even if only in your dreams. There's no moral here, no redemption arc. I'm not trying to convince you I was strong, or brave, or smart. I was desperate. That's all it ever takes. Desperation opens the door, and rules keep it open. So if this reaches you, if you're on the edge, thinking one weird night job couldn't be that bad, remember this: monsters don't always break in. Sometimes they interview you. They shake your hand. They show you the checklist. And if you're not careful, you'll smile and say, "I can handle it." You'll mean it. And that's exactly what they're counting on. Because once you say yes, once you put on the uniform, you've already agreed to forget who you were. And maybe, just maybe, that's the point. Not to scare you, to replace you. One shift at a time. There's a part of me that still hopes this was all a nightmare. That I'll wake up on a threadbare couch in a shitty apartment with nothing more than a hangover and a bad memory. That the gas station was just some hallucination cooked up by grief and debt and desperation. But hope doesn't last long when you realise the scars are still there, even the ones you can't see. I haven't said my name aloud in months. Not because I forgot it, but because I'm not sure it belongs to me anymore. The last time I saw my reflection, it smiled first. It didn't blink. It didn't follow. it led. That's how I knew I didn't come back alone. I've moved 3 times, burned every piece of paper with my name on it, switched IDs, deleted every digital trace, and still the signs follow. A knock at 3:17 at A.M., a flicker of static on the motel television, a receipt in my pocket for a shift I never worked dated for tomorrow. I started hearing things again. The voice in the vents, the hum behind the silence. But worst of all, the rules. They come back, one by one, in order, not written, not posted, spoken, whispered, rehearsed in dreams, etched into my memory like prayers I never meant to learn. Don't leave the register unattended after 2:0. Don't let the girl in the pink parka inside. Don't trust what answers the phone. They aren't instructions anymore. They're instincts. I feel them guiding me when I walk past dark alleys, when I drive through empty towns, when I fill up my gas tank and see a flyer fluttering against a post that wasn't there yesterday. Sometimes I wonder if I've become one of the signs. Maybe I'm the warning now, the shadow people see from the corner of their eye, the voice that tells them to turn around. Maybe I didn't survive at all. Maybe I just changed uniforms. And if that's true, if I've become a vessel for whatever ritual I walked through that night, then this is my final act of defiance. My last shift. My final message scratched into the walls of a digital backroom before I'm completely absorbed. If someone finds this, if you're listening, watching, feeling this burn behind your eyes, know that it means the system is spreading again. Recruiting, feeding. The flyer will find you. The rules will seem harmless. The pay will look fair. But what you're applying for isn't a job. It's a role, a mask, a script, a trap. And once you play your part, once you clock in, you'll never know if what walks out with your face is still you. So remember me. Not as a victim, not even as a survivor. Remember me as a warning, a man who followed every rule and still lost everything. Because some places don't punish you for breaking the rules. They punish you for obeying them too well. And once you've obeyed long enough, you stop being the one reading the rules and start becoming the one writing them. You want to know the worst part? It's not the screams. It's not the shadows. It's not the thing in the mirror that moves a half-second too late. It's the silence that comes after. The moment when it all stops and you realize you're still alive. You think it should feel like relief. But it doesn't. It feels like an echo you'll never outrun. Because once you've lived by someone else's rules, once you've survived a place designed to consume identity, you don't walk away. You drift. I don't remember the last time I felt real. I drink coffee I can't taste. I cross streets without checking. I stare at strangers too long, not because I'm suspicious, but because I'm trying to see if they're wearing someone else's face too. You see, I followed every rule, and all it did was make me easier to replace. The moment I stepped out of that gas station, I thought I'd won. I thought I'd beaten it. But you don't beat something like Midnight Express. You inherit it. Like a sickness that doesn't kill it, teaches you how to spread. I don't talk to people anymore. I don't want to say something I shouldn't, pass on something invisible in a sentence I can't remember. But sometimes, I still write. I find myself jotting rules down in notebooks, on napkins, on motel walls. Not on purpose, like a reflex. Like I'm trying to prepare someone, or maybe lure them in. That's the trick, right? The rules don't just trap you. They train you to train the next one. That's how it survives. Not by hunting, by recruiting. Quietly, patiently, through flyers, through voices, through people like me. I was the desperate guy once. The one who needed a job. Now I'm the warning sign. I see it when I pass another station at night. Fluorescent lights humming. A help wanted sign taped to dirty glass. I should keep walking, but part of me always wants to go in. Just to see if the clock behind the register says 3:17. Just to see if the girl in the pink parka is waiting by the cooler. Just to see if I still belong there. And maybe I do. Maybe part of me never left. So if you're hearing this, if something inside you is pulling, remember this. It doesn't want your blood. It wants your compliance. It wants you to feel safe while it rewrites who you are. And the scariest thing, you won't even notice. Not at first. You'll smile. You'll follow directions. You'll earn your paycheck. Until one day, you're just another set of eyes behind the counter watching the next you walk in. That's the final rule. The one they never write down. You don't leave Midnight Express. You become it. I used to believe I made it out. That I was different. That I was the lucky one. But the deeper I get into this thing, the more I realize you don't survive a place like Midnight Express. You get absorbed by it. Slowly. Subtly. Until the rules aren't something you remember, they're something you recite. Not out of fear, out of instinct, out of identity, out of muscle memory you never trained for. And now I wonder, did I leave the station? Or did it leave something behind in me? I've felt it. That pull, that itch behind my eyes. The moments where I check the clock and it's 3:17 AR. Again, even when I know I just looked 5 minutes ago. I feel the buzz of the lights before I flip the switch. I reach for the register key even when I'm nowhere near a store. It's like some part of me is still working the shift, still waiting for the bell over the door to ring. That's the real horror, not the night you lived through, but the fact it never really ends. They say trauma rewires your brain. Midnight Express didn't just rewire mine, it rewrote it. It overlaid my thoughts with rules, static, shadows that think. Now I'm walking around like a man in a costume sewn from his own skin, familiar on the outside. But underneath, nothing fits quite right. I've become a vector, a relay point, a transmitter of something older than fear. Something structured. Something that feeds on order and grows in silence. I've started seeing others like me. Not many, but enough. We pass each other in diners, in parking lots, in highway rest stops. We don't speak, we don't nod, but we recognize. It's in the eyes, that permanent squint, like we're seeing things others can't. That twitch when fluorescent lights buzz too loudly. The way we all know the rules without ever having learned them from the same sheet. So here's what I think Midnight Express isn't a haunted gas station. It's a franchise of fear, a rotating mechanism. The building is just a body. The ritual is the blood. And we're the messengers. We're the employees who clock in without clocks, punch out without rest, and carry the rules into every place we go until the next location is ready to open. Until the next desperate soul signs their name. And by then, it's too late. They won't feel the hooks. Not at first. They'll feel stability, routine, control. That's how it starts. That's always how it starts. So this is my last entry, my last message, my last warning. If there's still enough of me left to give one. If you ever hear a voice that sounds like yours. If you ever find a rulebook with no author. If a gas station you've never seen before suddenly feels like home run. Because you might not be a victim. You might be the replacement. And once Midnight Express finds a new location, it always needs a new manager. Maybe this was never a confession. Maybe it was a handoff. Not a story I needed to tell, but one something else needed you to hear. Because the longer I speak, the more I realize this was never just about surviving the station. It was about spreading it. That's what rules do, isn't it? They replicate, they embed, they take root in your habits, your thoughts, your dreams. I can't tell you the last time I did something spontaneous. Every step I take now feels scheduled, like somewhere in the back of my mind. I'm still following protocol. And maybe that's the point. Midnight Express doesn't want to haunt you. It wants to install itself inside you, quietly, permanently, until you start writing rules of your own. I used to wake up drenched in sweat, panicking that I was back at the gas station. Now I wake up hoping I am, because at least there, the monsters were predictable. They had rules. Out here, the rules are harder to spot, but they're everywhere. In the tone of a voice that tells you what not to question. In the policy signs taped to the windows of places you don't remember entering. In the strange sense of calm you feel when you're being watched. It's training. And I'm starting to think we've all been in training longer than we realize. So this is it. My final shift report. No more flyers. No more warnings. No more begging anyone to believe. Because belief doesn't matter. The system works whether you believe in it or not. That's what makes it perfect. That's what makes it eternal. Somewhere out there, another location is opening. Another register is being installed. Another uniform is being pressed and folded and laid gently on a counter under buzzing lights. Someone is going to take that job. And this time, it won't be by accident. It'll be someone like me, trained, ready, conditioned to obey without question. That's how it grows. That's how it thrives. Not by hunting, by hiring. And if that's true, if I'm part of it now, then let this be the last thing I say before I disappear into the background. Before I become the shadow, standing behind the next poor bastard who breaks rule number 2. Don't look behind the shelves, because that's where I'll be. Smiling. Silent. Waiting. And if you're lucky, you'll forget this story. You'll scroll past. You'll convince yourself it was fiction. But if you're not, if you ever find yourself alone on a stretch of highway, low on gas, drawn to a flickering open sign in the middle of nowhere, remember this: the door will already be unlocked, the rules will already be waiting, and the clock will already be ticking. Because some horror doesn't chase you, it hires you. And your first shift started the moment you hit play. They say the worst part of surviving is living with the memory. But I've learned something far more terrifying. The memory isn't what stays. It's what changes inside you that never leaves. Midnight Express didn't just show me monsters. It showed me a version of myself that was willing to follow the rules to the end of the world, no matter the cost. And once you know you're capable of that, you're never truly free. I don't look over my shoulder because I'm afraid. I look because I expect to see something. Not a figure, not a face, but a reflection of what I've become. It's subtle, like hearing a familiar song in static. A twitch, a hum, a shift. And maybe that's the real point of all this. It was never about escaping the gas station. It was about realizing that I brought it with me. The scariest thing in this story isn't the thing in the cooler. It's not the phone call, or the burned man, or the rules. It's the idea that the job never ended, that I might still be on shift, still reciting someone else's orders, still waiting for the next customer, the next story, the next victim. And that's why this can't be the end. Because I think there's more stations, more employees, more rules. And somewhere out there, someone has started their first shift, just like I did. So if you've made it this far, and you think this story is finished, you're already too late. The station is open, the rules are spreading, and the next chapter, It's already waiting for you. You made it to the end. You stayed through every flicker of the lights, every whispered rule, every moment where the silence felt too alive. Maybe you think the story's over, that I've said everything I needed to say. But if there's one thing Midnight Express taught me, it's that no horror truly ends. It just waits for the next shift to begin. The gas station wasn't the beginning. It was a symptom, a small outpost in a larger system that thrives on silence, structure, and fear. A system that doesn't punish you for breaking the rules. It punishes you for following them blindly. You followed me through all of this. You listened. You imagined the blood, the static, the unblinking eyes behind the cooler. But here's the real twist this story. It's not just mine anymore, it's yours. Because now you know the rules, you've heard them, and once you hear the rules, you're part of the game. That's how it spreads, not through monsters, not through screams, through familiarity, through stories like this one, through people who think. Just one shift. What's the worst that could happen? I walked in thinking I'd make a little cash. I walked out with something inside me I'll never scrub clean. And if that flyer finds you next, if that store appears at the end of a lonely road when you're most desperate, remember this story and run. Because some jobs don't end with a paycheck. Some jobs end you. And the worst part is, you'll still show up for work. Now, if this story hit you, if it chilled your spine, or made you check your door locks twice, don't let it fade into the algorithm. Hit that like button to let the system know you're awake. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of stories they don't want you to hear. Share this video because someone out there needs to know what's waiting for them behind that help wanted sign. And when the next one drops, you'll be the first to hear the whispers before they speak your name.